So Shabbat Shalom, everybody. We're delighted to be able to be here on Shabbat. It's a special Shabbat. We've got visitors all the way from Maine and other places. Rabbi Dan Aronson is here. Some of you have not yet heard after devoting so many years to Jewish education in many, many ways and providing some wonderful, wonderful Hebrew programming for our children. Rabbi Aronson is going to his own pulpit in Keene, New Hampshire. Ahavas Achim, I think, is the name of the congregation. And we're delighted for him and his family. We're sorry to see him go, but he's going to be the guest sermonator tonight. And so we're excited about that, and we wish everybody Shabbat Shalom. Hey, Shabbat Shalom. Hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Hey, Shabbat Shalom. Hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat, Shalom, hey, Shabbat, 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 Shalom. And we bring in the light of Shabbat. Anyone who has candles that you're ready to light, feel free to do so. I'm going to light these candles here. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, God, ruler of all, who makes us holy with commandments like lighting the lights of Shabbat. Cantor.
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu להדליק נר, v'tzivanu להדליק נר, v'tzivanu להדליק נר של שבת.
Amen v'amen. And we welcome Shabbat. We receive the Sabbath, Kabbalat Shabbat, receiving it with the beautiful poetry that the Kabbalists gave us. Lecha dodi, welcome to the Sabbath bride.
Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, pnei bnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, pnei bnei Shabbat nekabela. La 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 la. Likrat likrat kala, pnei bnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, pnei bnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, yishmi'anu Elohem yochad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad. U'shemu tiferet v'lidila la 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 la. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, pnei bnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, pnei bnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, yishmi'anu Elohem yochad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shemu tiferet lilat la 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 lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, pnei bnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat likrat kala, pnei bnei Shabbat nekabela.
Welcome to the Sabbath Bride and the Sabbath Queen. And now we're gathering together from all the way to Maine and other places. We gather for a formal call to worship as Cantor leads us in Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
And we continue with that beautiful 6-word phrase from Deuteronomy that is the heart of who we are as one people with one God.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
Hear, O Israel, the Eternal One is our God, the eternal God alone. Blessed is God's glorious majesty forever and ever. This service would not be complete with all the journeys that we're talking about and all the journeys we've been through and look forward to without the inclusion of the one song that we sang as we crossed the Sea of Reeds. The song where we said, who is like God who can establish such miracles as to open up a sea to let us pass through for the next journey in front of us. Mi chamocha.
La 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 la. Mi kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef ele, nora tehilot osef ele. Malchudecha ra'ovanecha, bokayam livnei Moshe Miriam, zeni zeni, ahanu v'hameru. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed.
Let's take a few moments for silent worship, each of us connecting with God in our own way, to take some true silence, to feel the teachings, to feel what God has to offer, and to feel what we have inside ourselves. May the Lord protect and defend you. May he always keep you from shame. May you come to be in Yisrael a shining name. May you be like Ruth and like David. May you be deserving of praise. Strengthen them, O Lord, and keep them from the stranger's ways. May God bless you and grant you long lives. May the Lord fulfill our Sabbath prayer for you. May God make you good husbands and wives. May he send you loved ones who will care for you. May the Lord protect and defend you. May he always keep you from pain. Strengthen them, O Lord, with happiness and peace. Oh, hear our Sabbath prayer. Amen. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be a delight to God, our rock and our redeemer. May the one who makes peace in the heavens grant peace to us, to all Israel, and to all humanity.
Ose shalom, shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Uyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amen. Ose shalom, shalom bimramav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Ve'al kol Yisrael,
Chaverim of Temple Beth Torah, we are thrilled to be able to gather, to be able to say Lehitraot to Rabbi Aronson, Lehitraot until we see each other again. We share being Rabbi Dans. What more can you share? And some of you have seen the exciting picture. I made sure to send it to my friends in Keene of us as Batman and Superman on Torah.
Absolutely.
He has brought a sense of love and a sense of fun to Hebrew, and he's going to a congregation called Ahavas Achim, which is the love of brotherhood. And I can't think of a better name for a congregation. Many of our adults haven't had the chance to learn much from him because he's focused on the children, and the children learned quite a bit. We've really made great strides in our Hebrew program. And so we're going to have the opportunity to learn from him. Tonight, actually, Carrie and Dennis Keith have made a donation to sponsor this night's event in honor of Rabbi Aronson. And so we're thrilled to have some words of Torah from our own Rabbi Dan Aronson before he goes off to Keene, New Hampshire to be the rabbi there.
Thank you, Rabbi Dan. And thank you, Carrie and Keith, for sponsoring tonight's Kiddush. I'm really looking forward to it. It should be a really nice, light affair, I think. So as I'm sure you've all noticed of late, we're living in interesting times. COVID-19, Black Lives Matter, DACA, LGBTQ plus pride, a political landscape like none others we've experienced in our nation's history, climate change. In the case of Beth, Katie, and me, leaving a place that we've come to call home and setting out for a new place full of unknowns. Interesting times indeed for all of us. But as a Greek philosopher once said, the only constant in life is in fact change. Unfortunately, with change often comes uncertainty. Uncertainty about what the future will look like, uncertainty about our ability to change with the times, uncertainty about what our lives will mean once all is said and done. Change can be scary and it can be difficult. We know that. But we also know that change can be exciting and full of promise, something to be welcomed. It all depends on the attitude with which we approach it, right? I actually disagree with that Greek philosopher, though, who said that change is the only constant in life, because I believe there's another constant in life, and I believe that constant is God. And while we experience change all the time, it's a little harder to experience and to know we're experiencing God. That requires faith. Once upon a time, 2 years after God had freed the people of Israel from bondage in Egypt, those same Israelite people were encamped at Paran, a wilderness area southeast of the Sinai Desert, and just a short distance from the land of Canaan that God had promised them. Either upon God's suggestion or upon the insistence of the people themselves, or maybe both, Moses dispatched scouts to check out the land. Go, said Moses, and see what kind of land awaits us there to conquer. Are the people there strong or weak, few or many? Do the people live in open towns or in fortified, walled cities? Is the soil fertile or barren? Is the land wooded or not wooded? Bring this information back, and while you're at it, bring some food back for us as well, so that we can see what awaits us in the land. The scouts did what Moses told them to do. They went and they scouted the land. They wandered the Negev, they spied out the city of Hebron, and they sampled the fruits of Wadi Eshkol, the Valley of Grapes. There were pomegranates, figs, and of course, grapes. And such grapes they found. The grapes in Wadi Eshkol were so ginormous that it took 2 of the strongest men among the scouts to carry just 1 cluster of them on a pole back to Moses, Aaron, and their community. And that's what they did. And they went back to the community exactly 40 days. I get ahead of myself. After they first began their expedition. How was it, asked Moses? New? Are the people there strong or weak, few or many? Do the people live in open towns or in fortified walled cities? Is the soil fertile or barren? Is the land wooded or not wooded? So initially the news was great. The land oozes with milk and honey from date palms and all kinds of plants. Fertile? You betcha. Just check out these grapes. But then their report turned bleak. But the people there, the people were big and powerful, and the cities were large and they were heavily fortified. One of the spies, Caleb, knew what they were talking about, but he tried to hush them. He thought to himself, that's all true. But what came out of his mouth was, let's do this thing. Let's go up, let's conquer the people and possess the land. We can overcome it. Are you crazy? The other spies shouted at him. Well, that's all the other spies except one, whose name was Joshua. But the spy says, we can't attack them. They're stronger than us. The tribes there are always at war with one another. They'll devour us. In one place, we even saw giants. And when we saw them, we looked like grasshoppers to ourselves. Teeny tiny grasshoppers. Imagine what we would have looked like to them. Forget this nonsense of conquering the land, they said. Forget God's promise. Did God bring us all this way to die by the sword? They protested. And the people started to murmur, let's go back to Egypt. Yeah, let's go back to Egypt. Just then, Joshua and Caleb spoke up again. Not so. The land we scouted was excellent. If God is pleased with us, God will bring us into that land flowing with milk and honey and give it to us. Don't be afraid of those people we saw. With God on our side, they will be our prey. But you know what? The harm had already been done. The scouts had lost faith in God, if they ever had it. God felt rejected. I'd wipe you all out here and now, God said, if Moses hadn't pointed out how bad the optics would be to the other nations of the world. Instead, I'm going to make you wander this wilderness for another 38 years. And the only people who will enter the land will be Joshua, Caleb, and anyone else born after we left Egypt, or you left Egypt. The rest of you will die out over time. And so it took the Israelites a total of 40 years after departing Egypt to finally enter the land. But Joshua and Caleb had faith in God. They believed in their ability to conquer the land and its inhabitants. The other scouts feared for their lives, but more than that, they feared change itself. That's why they wanted to go back to Egypt. They knew they'd be miserable there, but they knew life there. They wanted the life that they had because they didn't want to change. Joshua and Caleb, on the other hand, embraced the change that awaited, for they knew that only by entering the strange land would they experience Eretz Zavat Chalav Udavash, a land flowing with milk and honey. As Beth and Katie and I consider the changes we're about to experience, we choose to follow in the footsteps of Joshua and Caleb. We choose faith over despair, steadfastness over doubt, possibility over fear. We are preparing with open hearts and great enthusiasm to enter a new land, to begin a new chapter of our lives in Keene, New Hampshire, where I'll become the rabbi of congregation Ahavas Achim, a small Reconstructionist congregation. Now, Rashi, a medieval French biblical commentator, said something about Caleb that I think fits here. He said that Caleb actually had two kinds of spirit. One spirit was with the scouts, but one spirit was with God. Think about this. Caleb was one of the scouts. They were his friends and comrades. He experienced the land and its inhabitants exactly as they did. And quite frankly, he too was terrified of doing battle against the giants they all saw. But he chose to be guided by the spirit of faith. Faith that, come what may, it will all work out as God planned. He couldn't have known exactly what God had planned. He couldn't have known what would have happened 38 years into the future, but the details didn't matter. He had faith, and with that faith came optimism. Now, we're only human. In facing this transition that awaits us, my family and I are mourning the pending separation from dear friends and a Houston community that, in the true spirit of family, has supported us through 3 floods and numerous life events over the 7 years we've been here. I have loved serving TBT, and I have followed the instruction of our sages to acquire myself a teacher and acquire a friend. Now, some of you started as colleagues, and I know there are some students on the call and the service tonight as well. But you have all been my teachers. You've taught me something about community, about the power of storytelling, about the power of an open heart. And you have all become my friends. It's not easy to leave this place that we call home. Still, While we feel challenged on many levels as we pull up roots from Bayou City and replant them in the Granite State, like Caleb and Joshua, we look forward with excitement to the adventure and the opportunity this change presents. In fact, precisely because we were able to build a wonderful life here after moving from Philadelphia, we have faith that when we move this time to New Hampshire, we will again make new friends and experience the same spirit of family with which our Houston community has lifted us up over the past 7 years. We move forward anticipating a life filled with love, personal growth, giving to our community, receiving from our community. We look forward to fun in the sun and in the snow, proximity to many family members and friends in New England and neighboring states. We look forward to soft water and clean air and a beautiful, infinite, and visible night sky. Personally, I move forward grateful for all those who now support me in fulfilling a dream that I've deferred since graduating from rabbinical school 21 years ago this month. My journey from Houston to Keene is only possible because I've been embraced by the unending love of Beth and Katie, my son Jacob, my brothers Andy and Mike, my parents Sandel and Dick, who are on the call tonight. All of them have shared my optimism for the future and know just when to push and when to pull to keep me moving forward. At the end of the day, it's Beth and Katie and our cats and our geckos who will be making the drive from Houston to Keene, quarantined for 14 days by state law, and eventually become integrated into a whole new community, while also staying in touch with all of you by Zoom, Facebook, and email and phone. Though this change will be difficult for us, armed with the spirit and faith of Caleb and Joshua, we know that great things await us in Keene, New Hampshire, and that we will prosper when we get there. I hope and pray that all of you will meet the uncertainty of this moment in history with the same spirit and faith. For if you do, all of you in this awesome TBT community will surely continue to thrive. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, from strength to strength. What a beautiful way to say goodbye to a teacher and a friend. And we're celebrating so much that Rabbi Aronson mentioned. There's so much going on in the world. Among them, this Sunday is Father's Day. And as you saw on your emails, Cantor Tunitsky and Yana are going to be doing a special Father's Day program of music that's going to be available online on the Jewish Family Services website. And as a tribute to both the journey that the Aronson family is making and to the father of us all, Avraham Avinu, who also took that risk when God gave the suggestion that it's time to go. It's time to go start a new peoplehood. Lichilach, go to yourself and go forth. So Cantor is going to sing for us, Lichilach.
Lichilach, to a land that I will show you. Lech lecha, to a place you do not know. On your journey I will bless you, and you shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Lechilach, Lechilach, and I shall make your name great. Lech lecha, and all shall praise your a place that I will show you. Lesimchat Chaim, Lesimchat Chaim, Lesimchat Chaim, Lechilach. And you shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing.
May we all be a blessing on our journeys. I'm also grateful for the students who are here with us. I saw Danny and Leah. I believe I saw the Tuss and Nzinga and Landon and Alexander and a few other of our students. We're so glad that you came in to hear one last teaching from Rabbi Aronson. He mentioned that 21 years ago this week, he originally got his ordination from the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College. That's not quite as long as the 40 years that the Israelites were wandering, but I think it might be just about 40 years since Rabbi Aronson's bar mitzvah, if I'm not mistaken, if my math is correct. Earlier today, speaking of journeys, earlier today, Lauren and I had a chance to watch a conversation with the people who have been called either the three wise men or the three amigos of the spiritual world of Houston, Texas. Rabbi Sam Karf, Archbishop Joseph Fiorenza of the Catholic community, and Reverend Bill Lawson, who is a Black Baptist preacher. And they first came together decades ago when Houston did not have a public defender's office. And Reverend Lawson said, as a Black man trying to convince the authorities that we need a public defender, I don't know how much success I'll have. But if I have respected religious leaders from the Catholic and Jewish communities, perhaps we can have more influence. And the three of them developed a friendship that's lasted over 40 years. Reverend Lawson was a good close friend of Martin Luther King Jr., and these three men got together to talk about their involvement in civil rights in the 60s and how that has changed to today. This is an interesting weekend because in addition to Father's Day, we have the celebration of Juneteenth, which is, curiously enough, as we look at the Torah, Rabbi Aronson talked about how over 2 years after the Exodus from Egypt was when the scouts went to visit the Promised Land. Well, over 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, when Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves by law, 2.5 years later, that word finally came to the last state that still had slaves, and that state was Texas. And so Juneteenth, June 19th, today, has become the day that says all the slaves are free. This weekend is also about, it acknowledges Pride. It's Pride Week. It's the week, then the weekend, that acknowledges that people who are gay or lesbian or bisexual have had the opportunity to come out and acknowledge who they are and be proud of who they are as people. And so here we have an observation of peoples who have been oppressed and a celebration of a lessening of the oppression and an acknowledgement that oppression is not over. We know that we've seen from the world events recently, that there is still discrimination against Black people. There is still discrimination against gay and lesbian people. And of course, there is still discrimination against Jewish people. And when Bishop Fiorenza, the Catholic Archbishop, and Rabbi Samuel Karff, the Jewish rabbi, and Reverend William Lawson get together, they are demonstrating that these differences come together. Reverend Lawson said something very telling in the talk today. He said, when the Grand Rabbi Samuel Karff and the Reverend William A. Lawson and the Archbishop Joseph Fiorenza get together, we're just Sam, Bill, and Joe. Ordinary people. This is what happens when we get together and understand that people are people. Now, these grand concepts about a whole peoplehood, the blacks, the Jews, the gays, all the people who need freedom from oppression, this can be a long process. And another thing that is mentioned in this week's Torah portion, actually, is the tzitzit, the fringes that help us remember the commandments. And I was thinking that sometimes we feel like we're on the fringe of an issue. Lauren and I went to the rally for George Floyd a couple of weeks ago. And while it wasn't specifically our issue, none of us are free until all of us are free. And the idea that the scouts were so close to the promised land, but not quite there. And when we celebrate Juneteenth and the freedom of the slavery, we're not quite there where all peoples feel free. And when we have pride parades for gay and lesbian and bisexual people to understand that they can come out and be who they are, we're not quite there because not everyone has accepted it. And when we see how far the Jewish people have come, we're not quite there because anti-Semitism still exists. It hit home for me in a very personal way. And I think that people can relate to the idea of not being quite there, that we still have work to do. And this is exactly what Rabbi Karff and Reverend Lawson and Archbishop Fiorenza said. We've come a long way, but we still have work to do. And the difference that they noted from the civil rights in the 60s to what's happening now is that years ago, it was a black issue. And the blacks were protesting, but there were fewer whites who were participating. And now we see universal issues that we work on together. And I thought about how personal it can be when each of us thinks of our own issues. I had, personally, 2 situations with doctors. One was positive and one was negative. The negative one, thank God, I tested negative for COVID-19. Got the information today. It doesn't mean that I can stop being careful. It doesn't mean that I can throw away my mask. But it means that right now, I don't have the COVID-19 virus. And the day before, I had an appointment with my endocrinologist. Many of you know that I'm diabetic, and in my appointment with my endocrinologist, he was very happy. He noticed that I had lost some weight. The numbers on my charts of the blood work was all in the normal range where it was supposed to be. And he praised me for what I did and said, keep up the good work. And it occurred to me that just like fighting racism, just like fighting anti-Semitism, just like everything else, it still needs work. Relationships need work. People who are married for 10, 20, 30 years still have to work on their relationships, still need to be kind to each other. People who are working on their health. I can't just say, oh, good, I lost some weight and my numbers are normal. I don't have to work on my health anymore. Still have to do it. And when we see the freedoms from injustice, and we see how far that blacks, Jews, gays, and other people who have previously been more oppressed are now less oppressed, we know there's still work to do. And so as we move into our healing blessing, Let us think about the individuals who need healing, and let us think about the world that we can help heal just by our minimal participation. As usual, we'll sing one stanza. The cantor will lead us in Misha Berach, and we'll offer names. Anyone who has an extra name to add, please type it into the chat room, and then he'll conclude to envelop all the names into the prayers.
מקור הברכה לאמותינו, made us also strength who blessed the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen.
We ask for healing for Al Marks, Alice Kaufman, Arnold Farber, Bela bat Meda Brina, Gabriella bat Miriam, Kay Shelton, Lynn Maurer, Edith Kirk, Michelle Megarink, Miss Sigrid, Bill Dunk, Bina bat Malka, Baruch ben Bracha, Brian Goldberg, Brian Padveen, Uri Ruveni, Carol Curtis, Kay Rebus, Dale Vine, David Keith, Duty Muse, Joyce Canry, Louise Pennington, Marilyn Stark, Eddie Martin, Farida Batmazal, Floyd Truitt, Frida Beeler, Gary Getz and family, Jenya Gottfried, Grandpa Zinda, Papa Blumen, Hazel Ash, Ida Silverstein, Iris Kelly, Irma Freudenreich, Jane Wills, John Bassett, Gay Sue Bowers, John Miller, John Van Natta, Lawrence Levy, Leah Sapura bat Shoshana, Lisa Lappin, Malka bat Yetta, Marilyn Padveen, Mike Box, Gay Sue Bowers, Misha Natanzon, Neil Davis, Norm Bader, Paul Varner, Philip Gutman, Richard Sanders, Richard Weisberg, Ron Feller, Rose Lerner, Rosalind Mandel, Sandy Kurlander, Sandra Brooks, Sheila Schumann, Stacy Parker, Tom Graff, Vicky Van Natta. And I'd like to add a special personal prayer. A high school friend of mine, a family that was very dear to us, actually more than high school. We knew each other from first grade on. We grew up together in the same synagogue, and his mother was a singer in the choir. And his mother, over 30 years ago, contracted ALS, a very debilitating disease. And apparently it's hereditary. And both, two of her children have now contracted ALS. 3 years ago, his brother David Rasco, and today I got a phone call from my friend Todd, who was at my wedding, to let me know that he has also been diagnosed with ALS. And so we offer still prayers for David Ben Shani and Tadris Ben Shani and all those others, all the names that we've said and the names that we haven't said. Those we had the courage to say aloud and the discretion to say silently in our hearts, those we typed and those we thought about, and those who have no one to pray for them. May all our prayers be heard.
Blessed those in your healing, with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
And so we continue to offer our prayers for those who have come before us. The yard sites for the month of June include Hannah, and if anyone has a yard site, please let me know, or if anybody has, and then we'll go on to those who passed away recently. Yard sites for the month of June include Hannah Rosenberg-Shallett, Shirley Rosenfield, Betty Ryder, Mary Hirsch, Emma Munger, Leon Bloom, Henry Wellner, Bill Avery, Sidney Lovett, Michael Masterov, Charles Carney, Irving Hauptman, Ilsa Julie Ballin, Doris Klein, Robert Rose, Charles Deutsch, Lester Edelhock, Martha Sonnenfeld, Rose Koresh, Samuel Koresh, Sarah Koresh, Isidore Koresh, Eleanor Koresh, Perry Pollard, Sandy Pollard, John Ruskus Sr., Max Sussman, Rosa Auerbach, Robert Arner, Ethel Berger, Barbara Blankstein. We also acknowledge those who've passed away recently, including Eugenia Lebedava Tunitsky, a death that I found out, J. Victor Samuels, who was a giant in the world of Houston philanthropy and in the Samuels Award for the Educator of the Year, which Carrie Keith was a recipient of. Harold Liss is also a yard site. Did I miss any other yard sites? And those who passed away recently, including Mirta Morquin and Bill Podorzer. I found out of another death earlier this week, the son of Janet Sanders, who's the widow of Rabbi Ted Sanders, and her son Richard Bookbinder passed away at the age of 60. For all those for whom we mourn, whether they passed away during this time of year or at some other time, we hold them all in our hearts, and we find strength from saying Kaddish. We find strength from being able to be together, to hear the words that connect us and remind us of the holiness of Hashem, the holiness of God, as God has given these gifts. Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevarach. God gives and God takes away. Blessed is the name of God. I also learned today of I don't know his first name, the father of my dentist, Jonathan Penchas, who mentioned that the Father's Day weekend is difficult for him. He was a native Israeli. And so we just open our hearts. In fact, before I start Kaddish, let's just have one moment of silence for all the unnamed ones. Gadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yalma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chaye chonu v'yomei v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'vizman kariv yimru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam omei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudesha briachu. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May God send peace to those who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And we all say, Amen. And we also celebrate simchas. There is a big simcha in our community that just happened a couple of hours ago. Lacey Bormaster had her baby. Yay! A healthy baby boy. Because he was born before sundown, the bris, of course, a private ceremony due to COVID, will be next Friday. But we're very excited. She has been around and pregnant. She converted officially on the 1st of June, and her baby was born today. So we're thrilled to have the youngest member of TBT, Ryan's first child. And who else has a simcha that they'll either type in or unmute themselves? I guess you could call it a simcha that Lauren and I both tested negative for COVID-19.
I finished nature camp.
Oh, Aaron Blumen finished nature camp. Yes, and the good reminder, the Green Family Camp has online free programs for everybody. And so you should go right ahead. It's a blessing that Dick and Adele Aronson were able to join us tonight. And so that is a simcha, of course. And his aunt Elaine, I believe, who's Adele's sister, was able to also zoom in. We are, and of course,
my Uncle David.
To Rabbi Aronson for his new pulpit in Keene, New Hampshire. Mazel tov to Rabbi Aronson. The temple will be gifting him a mezuzah for their new home.
Love you, Rabbi Dan Aronson.
Yay! How can you beat that? That will be on the recording forever, and you'll always be able to hear that. All right. So for all these blessings, any other simchas?
We miss you.
I'm going to kidnap you and take you to New Hampshire with me.
Oh, no.
Yes. Mentioning a potential felony on a recorded thing is not good for a first-time rabbi.
Again with the optics.
Yes. Also want to mention that this Thursday we will have another lunchtime learning. We had one yesterday with Rabbi Seymour Roussel. Our last two have been very, very well attended. Let's how about give me a spotlight here? And we had a great one yesterday, and this Thursday, a good friend of mine, Rabbi David Zaslow, will be speaking about his book, Jesus, First Century Rabbi, comparing the Gospels to the Talmud, neither of which had been written by the time Jesus was alive, but it's a very fascinating way to acknowledge the spiritual nature of Christianity and Judaism. Noeli, did you have a simcha you wanted to mention? No, you're good?
Oh, no.
Okay, so for all these simchas and more, we say, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'achiyanu v'kiyamanu v'hegiyanu lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, God, ruler of all, who keeps us in life and sustains us, enabling us to reach this joyous time. And we all say, Amen.
Amen.
I'd like to invite everybody, I'd like to remind everybody that this Sunday at 1 o'clock will be a Father's Day concert sponsored by Jewish Family Services, featuring our own Cantor Vadim Tunitsky and his loyal accompanist, Yana Didick. And that will be on their Facebook website. We sent out a link. And if you don't have the opportunity to do it at 1 o'clock, it'll be on their website in the future, as will tonight's service and the lunchtime learnings. And so, as a blessing for Rabbi Aronson and his family and all other journeys, may you be blessed as you go on your way.
May you all be blessed as you go on your way. May you all be guided in peace. May you you be blessed with health and joy. May this be our blessing. Amen. 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 May this be our blessing. Amen. 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 May this be our blessing. Amen. May you be sheltered by the wings of peace. May you be kept in safety and in love. May grace and compassion find their way into your soul. May this be our blessing. Amen. 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 May this be our blessing. Amen. 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 May this be our blessing. Amen.
What a blessing and what a blessed time that we have. And so I offer a final benediction. Shema Kolenu Adonai Eloheinu Ruach HaOlam. Hear our voice, O Lord our God, Spirit of the world. As we learn from Torah and we learn of all the journeys, may we remember the bravery of Caleb, to be able to stand up to those who disagreed with him. May we be able to go with our faith rather than our fears. May we be able to look forward to the way that we can, as we get closer and closer and closer to freedom, closer and closer and closer to a promised land, closer and closer and closer to a time when all people will feel free, whether the color of their skin or their sexual orientation or their religion is confusing to others. May we be able to learn and set our example from the Talmudic expression that Rabbi Aronson taught us. Find yourself a teacher and find yourself a friend. May we find those friends with the unity of all and be able to connect, to learn, and bring freedom to all.
Yar Adonai panav elecha yichuneka Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha
Keene Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will. We all say, Amen. Savrei L'chaim. Shabbat Shalom. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech olam borei peri hagafen. Blessed is God who brings us fruit from the vine. Amen. And a virtual challah tonight. As Dr. Penn might say, nothing here, and still nothing. but an imaginary challah. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom, everyone. Shabbat shalom. Hey, Shabbat shalom. Hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat.